This is the American rock and roll supremo, Mr. Bruce Springsteen, aka The Boss. If you don't know his music, check him out. He is absolutely awesome. Among his many sublime tunes is a song he wrote called Born in the USA. The song is a stinging critique of the ways in which many societies mistreat veteran soldiers when they return to their home countries. Springsteen took the ways in which American veterans of the 1955 to 75 war in Vietnam were treated when they returned to America. The song's a critique of the American government and much of American society at that time. However, American Republican politicians, from Ronald Reagan to Donald Trump, have used the song as a patriotic anthem to praise the USA. Now, maybe Bruce Springsteen would have gained something by adopting the lens of the scientist when writing this amazing song. Welcome to ToK Today. I'm Daniel, and today we're looking at essay number 6, November 24. That's the possible gains for artists and scientists of adopting each other's lenses. Now, if you're unclear about the key terms, the lens of the scientist and the lens of the artist, then make sure to watch our CTB covering the basics video for this prompt linked above. In this video, we're just going to jump straight into the question, what could be gained by artists and scientists if they were to adopt each other's lenses? Now, if you want detailed help and guidance on this essay, make sure that you pick up the ToK Today essay guidance notes for this title from the ToK Today website, link in the video description. Let's jump straight in with an example of a knowledge argument, and that is, if the artist adopts the lens of the scientist and the scientist adopts the lens of the artist, they both gain additional strength to their methodologies. Now, if we were to make this knowledge argument, we would briefly have to describe the lens of the artist and the lens of the scientist in terms of methodology and what that would mean if they were adopted by each AOK. However, we don't want to use too many words doing this because this is not the focus of this essay. The focus of this essay is on whether those changes brought about by adoption of the other AOK's lenses are gains for the artist or gains for the scientist. So we're going to spend some of our time describing, but most of our time we're going to spend on the gains. So let's remind ourselves of our knowledge argument. If the artist adopts the lens of the scientist and the scientist adopts the lens of the artist, they both gain additional strengths to their methodologies. Very briefly, the methodology of the artist is relatively flexible, it's changeable, and it's open to the artist to decide the methodology. The methodology of the scientist, on the other hand, is relatively limited, it's narrowly and clearly defined, and it's not particularly open for the scientist to decide which methodology to use and how to use it. Now, if the artist adopts the lens of the scientist on methodology, then they have far more restrictions on the methodologies that can be used, and a much narrower and clearer definition of acceptable methodologies. But if the scientist adopts the lens of the artist on methodologies, then they have much more freedom in the methodologies that they can use, and they've got more freedom to define what's acceptable methodologies and what are not acceptable methodologies. Okay, let's get into the heart of this question. What might be the gains for the artist and the gains for the scientist of adopting each other's lenses on methodologies? So let's take the artist first. We could argue that by limiting and prescribing the range of methodologies used by artists, there would be a consolidation and strengthening of those methodologies. If all the artists in a genre are using the same methodology, then any weaknesses in that methodology will quickly become apparent. The methodology could become more effective at producing artistic knowledge, and it could improve the effectiveness of the knowledge produced. For example, if all script writers use the same methodology for writing scripts, then weaknesses that lead to poor scripts will quickly be found, as will strengths that lead to strong scripts. So the evolutionary development of the methodology could even be improved. Now, a second gain could be that there will be enhanced refinement and distillation of existing knowledge. If all the artists in a particular genre are using a very narrow range of methodologies to produce knowledge, it could be argued that knowledge in the genre will incrementally improve in relation to that methodology. And this is what we see in a highly prescribed genre, such as ballet, in comparison to a less prescribed genre, such as street dance. Ballet has a very limited and clearly defined set of positions, and as such the performance of ballet has been defined to very exacting standards. On the other hand, street dance is far more flexible in terms of acceptable steps and positions, and consequently the performance of street dance is far more open to interpretation than the performance of ballet. Now, a final gain is in many ways an implied consequence of the first and second gains, and that is if the methodology is strengthened and knowledge is refined and distilled, there should be less potential for misinterpretation and misrepresentation of the knowledge produced. The meaning and purpose of knowledge should become clearer as there's less variability in the ways in which knowledge is made and less variation in the ways in which knowledge is presented. And this leads to more certainty and clarity for knowers as they pursue knowledge. And this takes us back to Bruce Springsteen. According to this argument, maybe his song Born in the USA would have been less likely to be misinterpreted by Republicans if songwriters wrote songs like scientists write scientific reports. That would make for an interesting world, wouldn't it? Okay, we're about to move on to look at what the potential gains for scientists would be if they were to adopt the lens of the artist. But before we do, I just want to remind you that this is only one of many possible knowledge arguments that could be used for this question. We explore many more knowledge arguments and the evaluation and implication points that come from those knowledge arguments in the ToK Today Essay Guidance Notes for essay number 6. We also include real-life examples for each of the knowledge arguments in those notes. At over 9,000 words long, those notes are like a mini textbook for this essay, so pick them up from the link in the video description. Okay, let's look at what the potential gains for scientists would be if they were to adopt the lens of the artist on methodologies. Now, the first gain could be that scientists would gain the freedom to define acceptable methodologies and to use a far wider range of methodologies. And this could give them the freedom to choose methodologies that better suit the context, object, or subject of their research. They could choose methodologies that better suit the resources available to them, enabling more scientists to produce more scientific knowledge. Additionally, scientists would be able to decide for themselves whether the methodology used was acceptable and whether the subsequent knowledge produced could be defined as scientific. Now, the second possible gain is a consequence of the first gain. If there's more freedom for scientists to choose the methodologies that they wish to use, there's also a greater opportunity for more knowers to become scientists or knowledge producers. Knowers no longer need access to a laboratory, a PhD, and a peer-reviewed journal to become a scientist, a producer of scientific knowledge. The gain of new knowledge producers entering the area of knowledge could be that they may bring new perspectives and ideas into the area of knowledge. Now, the final gain that we're going to look at is a consequence of the first two gains. The use of more flexible methodologies and the entrance of new knowledge producers into the AOK could lead to more creative and innovative approaches to existing unsolved problems or weaknesses in knowledge. These new methods used by new knowledge producers could lead to unorthodox and novel discoveries to solve existing problems. Now, we could go on developing gains for both artists and scientists from just this one knowledge argument, but I think we've covered enough for you to get the idea that you've got to focus on the gains rather than on the description of the differences. Now, before we get on to the evaluation points, I'd like to ask you to do something that would be a great gain for me, and that is to like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you adopt the lens of the YouTuber, you quickly realise how much joy you can bring by liking someone's video. Such a small act with such positive consequences. So, thank you. Okay, let's look at some evaluation points. These are the weaknesses or the limitations in the arguments made with regard to the gains described earlier. Now, I'm not going to go into each individual AOK, but I'm just going to amalgamate the points to cover both AOKs because I think that they apply to both AOKs generally. So the first big evaluation point is a concern about changing the methodology of an AOK in relation to the coherence and definition of that AOK. Now, it could be argued that AOKs are defined by the methodologies that they use to create knowledge. And this could be argued at the level of the individual genres and at the level of the whole AOK. If we change the methodology or the principles that inform the methodology, then we are undermining the very coherence of the AOK itself. For example, is physics still physics if physics knowledge can be produced through interpretative dance? And likewise, is interpretative dance still interpretative dance if an authority body determines how it is to be choreographed and performed? Now, the second evaluation point is that the methodologies of the AOK and their constituent disciplines are defined according to their functions. Specific methodologies are used as they are the most useful and effective means to produce knowledge in that discipline. For example, the aim of the natural scientist is to produce the most objective understanding of cause and effect relationships possible. The scientific method is designed to produce the most objective understanding of cause and effect relationships possible. On the other hand, dance choreography is designed to express stories and emotions through the physical movement of the body. It's probably not very effective at establishing objective cause and effect relationships, nor is the scientific method particularly effective at expressing stories and emotions through the physical movement of the body. So the final evaluation point is an amalgamation of evaluation points 1 and 2, and that is that if we change the methodologies of the AOK, we change the purpose of the AOK. If AOK the Arts is no longer using methodologies designed to express stories and emotions, then its functions and purposes change, and likewise with the sciences. Now, the implication of these evaluation points are that the relationship between the methodology of an AOK, the purpose of an AOK, and the definition of an AOK is mutually inclusive. That means that if you change one element, you change all the elements. Now, we could go on developing these evaluation and implication points, but I think that you've got the idea, and you've graciously given me more than enough of your time today. So if you want to know more about how to write evaluation points, check out my video, Evaluation in the ToK Essay, which is linked above. And hopefully from this overview video, you get some ideas for how to approach this essay. There are, of course, many, many other ways to develop this essay, some of which we go into in a lot more detail in the ToK Today essay guidance notes for this essay, which are linked in the video description below. Thank you for watching. Remember to hit like and subscribe. ToK Today has videos for all of the other ToK essay titles and for many of the ToK exhibition titles. So be sure to tell your friends about us. Spread the good ToK word. Check out Bruce Springsteen and stay ToKtastic, my friends. Bye.